FIDE Master Victor Neustroyev again, and today we are going to talk about pins, how to create and take the advantage of the pins. Now I'm sure everything should work perfectly, so let me know if the sound and video quality is good. I think it's actually should be fine. Okay, fine. Looks like everything works. Okay, guys who attend the webinar for the first time, please let me know where are you from and what's your ELO. Okay. Hello, everyone. Okay, guys. So first of all, what news do we have? I started my online tournament. It's a round-robin tournament that I was talking about. We have 3 leagues, and each league consists of from 8 to 10 players. They play between each other, and I suggest them to play 2 games per week. So 2 games with the same player, one with white, one with black. I will let you know about the results. Right now I just know that a few pairs played. However, they all enjoy the tournaments, and I think such online tournament is a good preparation for the OTB tournaments. What other news do I have? Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, I published a news about how to beat Stafford Gambit. Probably you saw it and you attended my previous webinar. What else? This is my chess.com profile, so you can send me a friend request. But I also wrote another article about top 5 modern chess openings. Which you may also find on my YouTube channel. Here, let me refresh the page. So this is my YouTube channel. I kindly ask you to subscribe. And here you see I'm streaming the webinar. Here it is, webinar 91 live. And the top 5 modern chess openings. So please watch. I think you will find it really interesting because these are the openings that you can apply in your games. Of course, I don't explain everything, and before applying them in your real games, you should study them well, but at least you know what do grandmasters and club players currently prefer to play. One more thing about the blog. Here in these 5 tips for solving puzzles, you can find practical tips of how to solve the puzzles properly. But the main thing is that here I also offer a free guide of how to self-study chess. You can just write down your email here, or you see this is my email, tricksofchess@gmail.com. Then click subscribe, and then you get this book, which consists of practical tips of what to do if you would like to study chess yourself. Okay, fine. Let me close everything. And get back to our lesson. So today we are going to talk about pins, and many games are won because of pins. So This is the first position that we are going to discuss. The game, it's a fragment from the game between Jose Raul Capablanca and Mark Fanarov. So please look at this position and tell me, where is the pin? And the second question is, of course, how to take the advantage of this pin. Any suggestions are welcome. By the way, guys, I'm looking to all your comments, both on Twitch and on YouTube as well. So the knight on e5 is pinned. Yes, I can say it's true. So how to take the advantage of this pin? I don't know. Here maybe the pawn is pinned. I mean, the knight is pinned. The pawn is under attack. Maybe it's not the pawn. It's more about this pin between knight and queen. So yeah, knight is pinned. How to exploit this pin? What do you think? What should be done? By the way, I also want you to understand that g7 is the object of the attack, so we can potentially use this idea of maybe queen g7 or knight h6, or just knight takes on g7. Okay, fine. If there are no ideas, I'm going to explain it. Now, here we may start with a sacrifice. We may play rook takes d6 move. What's the idea of such a move? We sacrifice the rook, hoping they take with the rook. If not, then at least we are one pawn up. And I believe the position is winning because we are also attacking the bishop. And if we get rid of the bishop, we can capture the knight. So it will be completely losing position. They have to accept this sacrifice. What is our next move after we sacrifice our rook and they capture with their rook? What do you think? So what suggestions do you have? Okay, looks like not so many. Let me help you. Of course, after we sacrifice the rook, we should capture on e5. And then you think that the rook is pinned. It's true. Moreover, if they capture with their bishop, we take with our queen and deliver a double threat. Checkmate on g7 with our queen, and also we would like to capture on d6. So let's make these moves on the board. Bishop e5. So if they take with the bishop, they can get into a real trouble because we do a double attack. And unfortunately for them, something like rook g6 won't work. We just take the queen. That's the problem. They probably have to play f6 or something like that, but then we just take the rook and we are up a knight and a pawn. That's why in this position black decided to apply a counter strike. What do you think? What counter strike am I talking about? Who can tell me? Rook d1. Yes, exactly. You're absolutely right. It's rook d1. Rook d1. What then? Oh, yeah, we have to take. otherwise they checkmate. So here we have to take what they can do after that. So either bishop a5 or queen e5, and looks like after that the position is equal. No, at least the number of pieces is equal. We are one pawn up. However, no, it's a mistake. After queen or bishop takes on e5, we are still winning. Let's say bishop e5. How would you play? What do you think? Knight to h6 check. Okay, thank you. And after knight h6, king goes to h8. And how to continue? Okay, and to continue, you can just take on e5. Knight h6, king h8, you take on e5, and no, not f4, but you take on e5. So here, if queen takes queen, then you have knight f7, which allows you to gain the queen back. This is a royal fork. And if rook takes, the game is over after rook d8, what leads to a checkmate. Same thing happens in case if they capture on e5 with their queen. You play this move first, king h8, then queen takes queen, bishop takes queen, and knight takes f7 with the same idea to gain the piece on e5. And if now rook captures, the game is over after rook d8. If rook doesn't capture, then you are up knight plus 2 pawns. So the position is completely winning. So it was actually not obvious in this position. It looks like the knight on e5 could cement their position and protect the weakness on d6, but due to double attack of the queen on g7 and the pressure on d6, this tactical strike was possible. So sometimes it's quite difficult to visualize the pin, even if it exists, and also to take the advantage of it. So always look for forcing moves when we create a pin and you believe you can take the advantage of it immediately. Now I would like to show you the second position, where your task is also to find a tactical strike, but this tactical strike only allows white to get a small positional advantage. But anyway, it's advantage anyway. It's not material advantage, but a positional advantage. What do you think white should do? Of course, I see that black has an isolated pawn, but it's not a big problem. If white continues developing their pieces, like bishop d3 or bishop e2, black just castles and everything looks fine for them. What do you think? What should be done? Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you that tomorrow, I mean on Monday, I'll publish another interesting video on my YouTube channel about Paul Murphy and his ability to attack. So don't forget to follow my YouTube channel. If you need the link, I can copy it again. So here it is. So, and tomorrow there will be another interesting video that I've recorded just a few days ago. So, what do you think? How to take the advantage and where we can find the pin? There is a discovered attack. If we move the knight, we can attack the bishop on c5. But what about the pin? Okay, I'll help you. Here we may start with knight takes d5. Why? What's the idea of such a move? Okay, so Alex, thank you for suggestion of castle queenside. This is a possible move, but definitely not the best one. So knight d5 threatens the bishop. It means that if knight takes knight, we can simply capture the bishop, get extra pawn plus a bishop pair. But what if the queen takes? How to continue? What do you think? Bishop c4, but then the queen retreats to d6 probably. What did you achieve? No, bishop c4 unfortunately doesn't work. But you can create a pin, which is b4. Yeah, it's b4. I'll show you on the board. b4. And if bishop moves, we can capture on c8, get another bishop. If bishop doesn't move, then we capture that bishop. What they can probably do? Knight bd7, after which we take. They take with the knight, then maybe bishop b4 or bishop c4. And white is slightly better positionally. In the open position, they have a bishop pair. So you see, it was quite difficult to realize that there is a pin of two bishops, and to be able to take the advantage of it, you should get rid of your knight and push b4, and at the same time distract the queen. Moreover, looks like this pin doesn't gain any material, but it does something very important. It captures one of the bishops, which what allows us to get a bishop pair, and in an open position it can be a decisive factor to succeed in this game. So I believe if it was a grandmaster's game, white would almost win. Okay, the second position I would like to show you, actually it's the third position. The knight is trapped, no, and pinned as well, right? Oh, the knight b3 works, but then the queen escapes and that's it. The knight is still hanging and has to play one more time. What do you think now white should do? How to get rid of the pin? What's your opinion? So you suggest to play knight c6, but knight c6 blunders on a1. Well, queen c6 is another possible, or queen b7 is another possible move, but no, let me try this move. Queen c6, then let's say rook a8. What did we achieve? The knight is still pinned and they are about to trade the queens off. Looks like the best way is to trade and then maybe play knight b3, and then white is not better. Okay, here the key move is bishop f4. What does this move do? First of all, if bishop takes a5, we can play bishop c7 and gain the material back. For example, queen a8, rook takes a5, queen takes f3, pawn takes f3, rook c8, and then knight b5. So we not only got rid of the pin, but also grabbed the pawn. If they play something else, for example, what? Yeah, it's difficult to suggest the move. No, I think rook a8 is a huge mistake. we can still do this and let them take. The position will be completely winning. Or maybe just knight b5, because the rook is not protected by anything except the queen. So we have a lot of good moves. Let's now calculate what happens in case if they don't accept this sacrifice on a5 but play queen b6. What do you think? How should we play? Because now this knight is still hanging. What's your opinion? Queen to b7. Well, queen b7 maybe, but it only... No, actually it doesn't work. Bishop a5 after that, and the queen is protected by the bishop, so it's a blunder. But knight c6, exactly, knight c6, and this is a fork. What can he do? The only move is bishop takes c3, after which taking on d8 still works, but is not the best option. We can just take on c3 to make the position simpler. Rook c8 and knight a7. The rook has only one spot, it's d8, but after that we just play rook fb1, capture the pawn for free, plus dominate on their queen side totally. Yeah, knight c6 was a good move. So here, by playing this move, we protected the rook, and we were able to play knight c6 on the next move, which was a discovered attack. And at the same time, bishop takes knight was a critical mistake because of bishop c7, which allows us not only to gain this bishop on a5, so to get the piece back, but also to capture the pawn on b5 and continue our queenside attack. Okay, fine. Now let's look at real games. First we analyze the game of Capablanca. Now this is a quite modern game. It was Evgeny Bareev playing with white pieces and Sergei Smagin with black. What can you say here? Where you can find the pin in this position? And of course, the second question is how to take the advantage of it. So if you need to think. But I think you can identify the pin immediately. So the knight, the bishop are pinned, bishop e7 and knight f6. So yeah, this is the pin. What does this pin allow us to do? Also, I want you to understand the role of the knight in this position. If we play knight d5 right now, then knight takes knight, and that will be a discovered attack. It won't work. It's a blunder. Knight d5 can be played after rook takes e7. Yes, I can agree with you. What else? If, for example, you don't see a tactical strike, then you should just somehow pile up the pressure on the enemy position. White is definitely better. With f5, white restricts any black activity, and something like that definitely improves white position. However, here we can already apply a tactical strike. First of all, I would like you to understand that bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, and knight d5 is a bad idea. For example, rook takes rook, and then they can play For example, bishop takes d4 check and something else after that. Okay. To reinforce this pin, we should get rid of this bishop, because when the bishop exists on e7, usually we can't exploit the pin. So let's analyze the sacrifice. Rook takes e7. Then he can capture with the queen or with the rook. First of all, let's talk about rook takes rook. How to continue? Should we capture on d5 immediately or do something in advance? What's your opinion? Bishop takes f6. Yeah, so taking on d5 immediately doesn't work in this position. If you do that, you are likely to, knight d5, knight takes d5, you are likely to lose two minor pieces for a rook and a pawn. First, let's ruin their pawn structure. Please look at the f5 pawn that restricts any knight activity. Then, of course, knight d5. He has to move the rook back, otherwise we gain the pawn, and got all our material back. So rook e8 is the only spot for that rook. But after knight e4, they experience real problems. Knight f6 is played on the next move, no matter what he does. King h8. Knight d takes f6, attacking the rook. Rook e7. And what can you say about that position? And what you can suggest as the next move for white? So white definitely dominates. What do you think? How much better white is? Is it just slightly better position, much better, or a winning position? What do you think? Okay, so there was suggestion to play knight e to f6 first, which we may analyze as well. Yeah, we will do it. Yeah, the position is completely winning. And in this position, we can do a lot. We can play queen c1, queen d2, or just d5 with the intention to restrict enemy pieces and also open the diagonal for our queen activity. Okay, there is a good question. Why not to capture with this knight? Well, if you do capture with this knight, then of course they can't find the spot for the rook, but they can play this move. The problem is that if now you capture on d5, they play this, queen d5. Yeah, they play this move, threatening, not threatening a checkmate. The knight is under attack, knight goes there, queen d4, and white is just slightly better. For example, king moves, rook d8. The number of white is just one pawn up, and it's definitely not enough to succeed in this position because black activated their pieces already. That's why it's better to capture with the d knight on f6, because the knight on e4 is protected while the knight on d5 was hanging. So rook e7, d5, the game is over. Now, what if they capture with the queen? No, then, of course, everyone will say that knight d5 should be played. That's right. So where the queen goes? To d6 or to d8? No, queen d8 is a blunder. Queen d8, then for example this, and knight e4, after which the best move is a rook to e4. The problem is that they were threatening with knight f6, and they can't move the king, because in such a case they blunder bishop f6, which delivers a fork to the king and queen. So Queen d8 is a huge mistake. Queen d6. How to continue in this case? What do you think? Okay, so I'm looking for your comments. So yeah, Tim, thank you for your suggestions. Your Queen d2 idea was good. Oh, what should we do here? Take on f6, and if take on f6, then which piece with? No, you can't play like that. So knight f6, yes, this move is correct. Why with the knight? Because the knight is hanging, so we'd better get rid of it, while keep our bishop in the active position. Moreover, bishop will help to deliver a checkmate if only we can somehow bring our queen to h6 and then take on f6. What then? If only we play knight f3, yeah, our position will be still good, but we can't play knight e5. Neither knight e5 nor knight g5 because of this pawn. That's why Evgeny Bareev plays knight e4, sacrificing the pawn on d4, which is not a big problem. King h1. The main idea of knight e4 move was to capture on f6, and then maybe take the rook, or maybe we can capture with the bishop. For example, rook ac8, how would you continue? What do you suggest? Queen e2? Queen e2 doesn't make much sense. So queen e2, they take on e4. We take with the queen or with the bishop. And where is our advantage? What else? What if I say that in this position you can leave your queen unprotected? Okay, so several people more joined our webinar, and for those people I would like to remind that I have a self-study guide, how to self-study chess, which consists of 10 tips which are well explained, and it's shown on my website. Let me just copy the link once again. So you can click on it and download if you scroll the page down. Okay, so again, there is a good suggestion from Tim. It's bishop takes f6. You are absolutely right, because if now rook takes c2, we capture on d4, threatening to take this rook and this rook with knight f6. That's why rook ac8 is a mistake. No, rook f6, of course, they can't do anything. They can probably move the queen out, or maybe they can capture on e4, but then we take on e4, they do this, and this position is completely winning. We have a bishop pair and one extra pawn. Plus, we are threatening to play something like that. Okay, let's go back. What else to analyze instead of rook ac8? Rook takes e4. How to deal with this move? Of course, we should capture. There is nothing else we can do. Rook c8. And in this position, I think we can just pass the game to the end game, which is completely winning. The pawn is hanging, so they probably do this, after which we can play maybe rook f4, threatening a check, and the pawn is likely to be lost just in a few moves. Oh, this endgame is absolutely winning because of the bishop pair and white pieces activity. However, you have to show some precise play. Bishop a4 was played in this game. Now please tell me how to react. What should we do? What is the best move? Okay, hello everyone who joined us recently. Bishop f6. Bishop f6 doesn't look good. Bishop f6, he can do what? Bishop f6, he can capture on e4. And if bishop f4, bishop c2. Oh wait, it's still a winning position. No, it's not, because we're down the exchange. So queen e4, bishop f4, bishop c2, bishop takes c2. We are down the exchange in this position. No, bishop f6 is actually a mistake. So while bishop f6 doesn't work, maybe knight takes f6 works. Let's check. Oh, this is a check, of course. If the king moves, we can just move the queen, for example, to c4. If they capture with the queen, this is the most interesting line, then we don't need to take the queen, because then again this is the same endgame, which is not in our favor. But we may capture the enemy bishop and protect our bishop. Now the queen has to move, and let's say rook f3 with a strong attack. Maybe that was the best option. However, the other thing you suggested is queen c4, but in this position queen c4 is just a blunder. They can take, or they can actually do this move first. If bishop takes, the queen is lost. So queen c4 is a mistake. Queen e2, this is what Evgeny Bareev played. White is still better. The idea was to move the queen to the king side, knight d7. And what can you say about the next move? Can you guess it? Or maybe you can come up with this move yourself. Imagine you are Evgeny Bareev. That time his rating was only 2365. Only after that, in a few years, he became a strong grandmaster and reached 27,000. Now, queen g4 doesn't offer anything. So queen g4, king f8, let's say. What then? There is a better move. Rook f4. The idea of rook f4 is to take the advantage of too many pieces, so the fourth rank is overloaded here. What then? What are we threatening with? We are threatening with rook g4 and then maybe knight f6, bishop f6. For example, they play, if they play rook ac8, just queen d2 to protect and take on f6 on the next move. If something else, still queen d2 with the same idea. In the game it was king h8. Looks safer than previous options, but who cares? Still queen d2. Queen e5. How would you continue the attack? What do you think? Okay, here you can play rook g4 to release the queen to h6. In the game, they played the rook g8. No, they played queen e7, what was a critical mistake, after which they lost the game in a few moves. A better move was definitely a rook to g8, but even rook g8 loses. How to continue after rook g8? What do you think? Knight takes f6? Knight takes f6, knight takes knight. If you want, I can show. What then? Queen h6 is a better move. You should play queen h6 immediately. And now you are threatening to take on f6, and there is nothing they can do. For example, rook g4, h takes g4, even if rook g8, you are still able to capture on f6. No, of course, they don't take. If they do, they lose the queen and get a checkmate actually. If here rook g7, then you can just capture there and play bishop f6 on the next move. Don't worry, there is no perpetual check. For example, bishop d7. In this position, instead of playing bishop f6, you can play even better, f6, double attack. Now the game is over, because if, for example, rook moves, you can just take and checkmate on f8 on the next move. But even if you play this move, there is no checkmate, don't worry. King h2, and what? Queen e5 is the only option, but the bishop is already on f6. So even if black played rook g8 as the best move, it's still winning. But they played queen e7, and after queen h6, they resigned. Now, I don't think I need to explain, but let me just quickly show. Rook g8 to secure this square. That was the only move. For example, something like that didn't work. Why? Because of bishop f6. Knight f6, queen f6, and there is nothing to talk about. So if rook g8 in this position, still knight f6, threatening a mate on h7. Rook g7 doesn't work, just queen takes. Knight f6 still is a bad idea because of bishop f6, then the game is over. Okay, this is how Evgeny Boreev took the advantage of this pin. This is the pin. But to be able to do that, he first prepared it by sacrificing the rook for that bishop. He realized that after that, he can successfully take the advantage of the pin, double the pawns, and finally capture the pawn on f6 for free. What also initiates a kingside attack. Okay, fine. And the last position that I prepared for today is taken from the game between Lazara Bruzon Batista and Konstantin Sakaev. Can you identify the pin in this position? It's black to move. Moreover, I can help you and tell that the last move white played was g4, g5. What do you think black should play, and where you can find the pin, and finally how to take the advantage of this pin? So the pin on the C file. Okay, so thank you for your suggestions. Parallax suggested knight takes e4 and bishop f5, creating a pin. That makes sense. Of course, this is not the best move, and white can find the way how to defend, but it's an interesting idea and definitely deserves our attention. So team also suggests knight takes e4 and bishop f5. Okay, guys, let me show you. Knight takes e4, knight takes e4, and bishop f5, as you said. But can white play anything in this position to be able to defend? Of course they can. They can even do rook g to e1. What's the idea of this move? The idea is that even if you play d5, I can capture, and I'm absolutely not afraid of rook c2, because after king b1, you can't do anything. It's not a checkmate. And if rook c4, I can play with my other knight to d2. However, instead of playing rook g1 and protect it on e4, I can not only defend, but also to counterattack with knight d4, threatening to take here and blocking the rook on c4. And then I think there is not much that you can do. Maybe retreat with the bishop, which allows me maybe to chase the rook, maybe to move the queen, or just anything. So you were right about the first move. It's knight e4, knight takes knight. But if you play bishop f5 in this position, it won't work. Looking forward, I can say that in this game, black took the advantage of 3 pins. Right now, you can identify only 1 or 2. But later in the game, or if you calculate the line a little bit deeper, you may realize that there is also the 3rd pin that was actually decisive for this position. What's the idea of sacrificing the rook on e4? Even if you do this, queen takes, and then if you want to play bishop f5, I can just retreat to e2 or g2. Up to you. Now rook a4? No, rook a4 and what? King b1 or knight c3? Guys, the knight is pinned. It's true, but not like that, but like this. That's why d5. And if now knight moves, we can capture on f4. What did happen in the game? White played knight c3. However, what if knight d4? We take, they take with the queen, and what do you think? How to continue now? What do you think? Bishop f5? Wait a sec. If you play bishop f5, I just capture with the queen. So what's the point of such a move? Of course, you may say, in such a case, I play rook d4. Fine. Rook d4, queen takes c8. Rook takes d1, rook takes d1. Rook takes c8. And where is your advantage? The number of pawns is equal. I would say it's a draw. So, what else? Maybe bishop c5, exactly, bishop c5. It not only pins here, but also here. What else to play? They can try two moves, this one and this one. For example, let's start with bishop a3. This move now allows us to play this, bishop f5. And now queen f5 doesn't work anymore, because here we are taking on e3 with a check and then take the queen. We are up a bishop. And if they just move the queen, where let's say to g2, then bishop d4, bishop takes d4, and after rook c2 the game is over. So let's analyze c3, because c3 removes the pawn from c2. So now rook c2 doesn't look so strong. What do you think black should do to continue? I want you to find the best move. Don't forget about this pin and try to find a way of how to take the advantage of it. Okay, rook d8 suggested by team, but no, rook d8 looks good. However, maybe just bishop e3. Oh wait, rook d8. What about just can I play knight e6? No, I can't. Rook d8, I can just play bishop e3 or e5. No, it doesn't work. Rook c3, bishop a3 is too optimistic. Okay, guys, this move is really difficult to find. It's bishop g4. Weird, but what does this move do? Let's look. We would like to attack the rook, and if rook goes away from the d file, we simply capture on d4 and gain a minor piece. But if the rook goes to d2, then you realize that in this position the knight is absolutely pinned. If only it moves, the rook on g1 is hanging for free. So it's not the exchange, it's just extra rook. That's why the next move we can do is bishop f5. And now if queen f5, just trade the queens and capture on g1 for free. And that's it. Extra exchange for black plus a better position. If they play something else, let's say this, then rook e8, queen f2, and here you may continue the attack with bishop d4 and rook c3 now. bc takes c3, queen c3, king goes to d1 and bishop c2. If they take, we capture there with a check, and then the other rook is hanging. If they don't capture, if they play king c1, we can play bishop g6. Check, king goes there, and bishop h5 leads to a checkmate. Oh, they can block, but it's just a temporary defense. Okay, fine. So after a rook d2, we can play bishop f5 and take the advantage of this pin and of this pin as well. That's why such a move wasn't played in the game, and instead of knight d4, they just retreated to c3. However, we just take on f4, knight takes on d5, gaining a pawn back, but actually it doesn't help. There will be still one pawn down, because bishop takes d5, queen takes d5, rook f5, and after queen moves, we capture on g5. King b1, then another attack, and bishop f6. No, they played a few more moves. After this move, white resigned. What was the reason to resign here? Oh, first of all, that were two strong grandmasters playing against each other. So Bruzon Batista was almost 2600, Sakaev was over 2600, and one extra pawn plus the advantage of the bishop versus knight defines the game here. White decided not to waste time and resigned. So let's look again at the original combination. G5 was played to chase the knight, knight takes z4, knight takes z4, and this is the first pin that we would like to take the advantage of. If they go there, then we capture and use this pin. And the most brilliant move in this position is bishop g4. That leaves the rook on g1 unprotected. And this is how we are able to succeed. Okay, fine. How about knight d6 in earlier? No. So d5, you mean knight d6 in this position? I think it's just a blunder. Bishop d6, bishop takes d6, and bishop f5. Then take on c2. So, because taking on c2 will be a checkmate. For example, queen goes somewhere, then rook c2, and after king b1, we just checkmate with a double check. And that's it. Was there anything else to play? Maybe, for example, like that. Then d takes z4, rook takes z4, and in this position we can just play b5 to increase the pressure with bishop f5 on the next move. The rook is not hanging because of b takes c4, a fork. Moreover, the weakness of c2 is critical in this position. Let's say knight a5, just this move, actually threatening to take on g5. And who can tell me how to deal with knight b3 in this position? Should we repeat the position, or we can play something better and gain the material immediately, at least a pawn? What do you think? Okay, how to gain the material in this position instead of moving the rook back? Any suggestions? No? Okay, I'll show you. Bishop f5 right now, then knight c5 just. Yeah, thank you. It's rook takes g5. That's right, absolutely. What then? Bishop takes g5. Bishop takes bishop. King has to move, and then bishop f5 gaining the exchange back. And we are one pawn up. Plus we have a bishop versus knight as we wanted before. Okay, guys, what would you like to ask me about the pins? So I think I can give you one common tip. If you create a pin, try to increase the pressure on the piece that is pinned. Of course, it's better to do with the pawns, but if you can't, try to do it with your minor pieces, with your major pieces, and don't capture the piece that is pinned immediately. You'd better take the advantage of the piece being pinned. For example, you tie enemy pieces down to that piece and can activate your pieces while he has to stay and tie his pieces down. So there is no need to take immediately. When they force you to take, then maybe you may analyze the option of trading or for the piece that is pinned. However, you should always be looking for a counterplay from your opponent. Okay, fine. So next Sunday I'm going to conduct a webinar, and actually I think it should be a simul. What do you think? If next time we start the simul, you can, if you would like to participate as a player, so you would like to play against me, you can email me at tricksofchess@gmail.com. Yeah, okay, so the next simul will be on Sunday, same time as usual. By the way, if you are also looking for private coaching, you can also email me at tricksofchess@gmail.com. And of course, don't forget to follow my YouTube channel. Tomorrow I'll publish another interesting video about how to attack like Paul Murphy, who is one of the best attackers in chess history. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining, and hope to see everyone in next Sunday on my next webinar.